Good morning. Um, my name is Yandron Kalzang, and I'd like to send my greeting for all of you. I'm one of the ATMA members, and thank you for joining us with the English version of Tibetan Medicine Talk here. And so thank you again. I just want to say a few things for housekeeping. ATMA stands for American Tibetan Medicine Association. So it is my delight to invite one of our Tibetan doctors in the States to do a presentation on Tibetan medicine, focus on the fall and winter diet and lifestyle to take care of yourself. In addition to that, we're going to talk a little bit thing about flu shot related matters. So before I start, I'd like to give you a little bit information about Tibetan Medicine Association, the American Tibetan Medicine Association. So I'm going to put myself on stop video. I'm gonna put the place here. Okay. So the American Tibetan Medical Association is a 501 nonprofit organization exclusively dedicated to promote and preserve of Tibetan medicine. ATMA is abbreviation of American Tibetan Medical Association, is the leading self-regulatory body for the practice of Tibetan medicine, Sowa Rigpa in North America. We are a member-led organization governed by an elected board of directors. ATMA's mission is to preserve, protect, and promote the knowledge, practice, and ethics of Tibetan medicine, Sowa Rigpa, for the benefit of well-being of humanity. Oh, sorry. Sorry about the pause. And the goal of the ATMA is to establish and maintain standards of education, ethics, and professional competency and licensing. Number two, to maintain the Tibetan medical field as separate and distinct healing profession. Three, to serve as the representative membership organization of Tibetan medical profession in North America. Our number 4 goal is to establish and maintain desirable relationship with the Tibetan medical profession, other professions, organizations and governmental agencies, research institutions, and all reputable groups with the compatible purposes. Our number 5 goal is really to affect public policies and legislations as all matters of pertaining to Tibetan medicine. The number 6 goals of our ATMA's goal is to support the establishment of licensing for the practice of Tibetan medicine. The last but not the least is the goal is to develop, participate in, and conduct and support medical research program consistent with the Tibetan medicine ethics and principles. So those are our goals. So now I like to extend our great and warming welcome to Dr. Tenzin Namdul. Thank you very much to come back with us again, once again. We have done a lot of program during this summer to help our Tibetan communities and also our general public to provide the Tibetan medicine education for them, sharing your expertise and your unique background of how you became a PhD postdoc from being a Tibetan doctor. But in addition to that, you did a lot of um, fieldwork studies in research, but also studied very lot of studies in the United States. So thank you very much for coming back. So I just like to spend one more minute to read a very short bio of yourself. Um, so thank you. So Tenzin Namdul is a Tibetan medical physician and medical anthropologist. Tenzin Tenzila received his Tibetan medical degree from Mizkang Tibetan Medical School in Dharamsala, India, and PhD from Emory University. And he is a postdoc researcher at University of Minnesota Division of Epidemiology and Community Health at the School of Public Health and graduate faculty of Bakken Center of Spirituality and Healing. Tenzin's research focuses on the intersection of biological and social cultural factors of factor in examining an association between cognitive and physical resilience and neurodegenerative disease among the older adults. So you have such a wonderful, unique background, and we're going to narrow down to all of those into our 60 minutes conversation into care through Tibetan medicine for the diet and lifestyle. What you can give some tips to keep them healthy during this fall and winter season. In addition to that, we had discussion how we can help those people who cannot take flu shots because flu shot is right now we're in the right in the middle of the fall season. Everybody is thinking through the public health it's time to take a flu shots. So we're going to go through some of those conversations as hold on one second, sorry. As we continue to deal with the pandemic, we have another things to worry about the coming of fall season for flu regular really we call flu season, right? So everybody knows now it's time to get a flu shots either like the school kids they're called back in September or October to get a flu shots. So how do you see this from Tibetan medicine perspectives?
Uh, Thank you. Thanks so much, Yandron. First of all, I want to give a shout out to you and all your colleagues at Atma for doing all this exceptional work, both in terms of public health as well as in providing care for Tibetans, then as well as the wider audience in your local community across the US. And then you all have been organizing all these webinars, which actually has made it possible for people across the world to get access to what Tibetan medicine can offer and what the integrative health approach that can include Tibetan medicine along with other mainstream healthcare in caring for people, especially in this current situation where things are pretty serious with pandemic. And now, as you rightly mentioned, Yandrila, about the flu season, right? And I've been see one thing which we discussed a little bit the other day about how different season could make difference on our health and well-being and the way we look at uh, our relationship to the environment and people around us. And I think this is key because flu shot has really become a subject of uh, discussion as well as argument. There are many people out there who might not necessarily opt to get a flu shot. But then, having said that, it's also important for us to recognize that there are people who are a little uncomfortable, afraid, or even had a bad experience if they had taken any form of vaccination, and including flu shot, where they might had a sudden reaction to one or other vaccination. So therefore, they might be not that comfortable in going out there and comply with the advice and directions that are being given by the public health sectors. Now, having said that, in Tibetan medicine, uh, we usually, when we talk about the causative factor for any kind of illness, now here we're talking more about flu or influenza, and then we're also talking about COVID-19 issue here. Uh, we talk about one kind of a causes which we usually don't talk at all in the mainstream healthcare, which is our state of our mind, right? And so, as Yandron, like you being a accomplished Tibetan physician, you would know it very well that we talk about the primordial cause, which is all our mind. And here, for the sake of our discussion, we won't really delve too deep into that, but that's the key thing. But then we talk about our afflictive emotions, and then our three principal energies. Then we get down to the nitty gritty of what we need to understand in terms of keeping ourselves healthy, and 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 uh, and and being able to be engaged in activities of our life, and which are the conditions that actually could trigger any kind of illness in our body. And in those conditions, along with diet and behavior and any form of external conditions, seasonal changes is one of the main conditions that we always discuss about. And so in Tibetan medicine, when we talk about the fall season or winter season, is one season where most of us tend to get susceptible or vulnerable in catching a flu or any kind of infection around. So therefore, the flu shot has always been advised and encouraged. One thing that I always think about any form of vaccination, and particularly flu shot, is it always supports and give a direction to our inherent whatever we have in our body from our birth, those bacteria, the ecosystem in our body, the when we get any form of vaccination, it actually guide and directs and give a cue to our body how we can respond to this particular virus, right? And here is the flu virus that we are looking at. And so therefore, I would tell people that please, if you have resources and facilities to go and get a flu shot, this is key thing. But along with that, it's not just one can get a flu shot and then be not careful about all other things, like being careful about how you interact with your environment, washing your hand regularly, putting up a mask. All those things are key things. And so, working together with conditions that you have out there, taking a flu shot, making sure that you follow certain diet and lifestyle or behavior, which we'll discuss a little bit more later on. And those things are so key, that how you can actually use all these resources together and keeping yourself and others uh, away from flu or the COVID-19 situation that we are facing right now.
Yeah. So thank you so much. So this is a wonderful explanation. Yeah, I always encounter with a lot of people and they ask me, Doctor, should I get a flu shot or not? So I always tell them there's no absolute answer. First of all, if you have, do you get allergic reaction? If not, if you have facility, you should take it. But on the other hand, if you cannot take, then we have to see as a pie. So 100%, but flu shot is only the not even 50%, maybe 40% it will prevent, but there's other sort of things can help you. So we definitely want to offer something that Tibetan medicine can offer another part of 40% to satisfy other people who cannot use it. So thank you so much. So maybe we will dive in a little bit later. So I do have another question. If you can give me 1 second. Sorry, I have to put you on the pause for 1 second, okay?
Really fine, yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. So so how does the importance of seasonal changes situate in Tibetan, and why do you think it is important? Um, in the health and treating illnesses. Why do you think like that in Tibetan medicine? What is the ideology for that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's important for us to first understand the premise upon which we are talking about the impact of season or the way season changes around us on our health, both physical and mentally, because we already know that. The root cause of everything actually stems out from our mind, especially coming from Tibetan medicine, because it's so inextricably linked with the Buddhist psychology and philosophy. But now, when we are dealing with conditions that could actually trigger any kind of physical and mental conditions, then season becomes so critical. Because in Tibetan medicine, as most of us would know, that it's not only about how our body, that is the union of our mind and body, react to different things in our environment. It's really also about how we are able to understand that intersection between our mind and body and our environment. Now, the condition is something which, if we are exposed to it, there's a chance that we might actually put ourselves in a situation that we could manifest any kind of physical and mental condition, mental imbalances. Now, when you look at the season, when we have to diagnose a patient, or if you have to design a treatment, we think a lot about the seasonal changes based on different season. When we do a pulse reading, we also really have to focus on what season it is and what kind of changes that we might experience or feel in person's pulse reading. In the same way, when we think about the illness, we have to know that in particular part of the year, like for instance, let's say now it's the fall. During the fall season, things have changed so much over the years or over the decades now. But usually, uh, during the fall season, it's a time that our body, which are exposed to certain level of coolness due to monsoon or later part of summer. Now all of a sudden it started to get a little warmer. So there's an immediate shift in the season and the temperature out there in the environment, which has a direct impact on our body and our mind. And when that happens, our metabolic heat, or in Tibetan medicine we would say tipa, it tends to go a little bit up. When we experience that, then we might actually think that, okay, now it's really warm and hot outside. We tend to put our guard down, and we started to engage in behavior, dress up in a certain way there might be not suitable for that condition, and therefore it can make ourselves susceptible to falling prey to any kind of a flu or any infection. So that's why for the fall, we put ourselves in a very vulnerable condition that we might get exposed to any of those infections. Now, after the fall season, and then the winter comes in, kicks in, and then the way our body and mind changes, we are not able to be in sync with that. And due to that, the problem that occurs is our digestive system tend to slow down a bit. We tend to put on a bit more weight, and therefore our immune system doesn't really work as it should. So our body and mind is not really fully equipped and prepared to face that seasonal changes. And therefore, in Tibetan medicine, we always say that, okay, diet and behavior is important, but we need to align our diet and behavior with the changes in the season. And when that happens, there's a much better chance for us to be much to be more prepared and to be more equipped to experience those changes in our season. And then if we get a flu shot, for instance, which we discussed earlier, flu shot can actually help our immune system, even though if it's a little compromised, or if someone has a underlying conditions, it can actually help and support our immune system to work with a uh, very limited resources that we have in our body due to changes in season. If it's a winter, our immune system might be slightly compromised, but the vaccination or a flu shot can help our immune system to make best use of whatever resources that we have when we're dealing with the immune system. So I think that's how we need to look at, with the change in season, how we actually continue to play with our own mind and body and adapt to sudden changes in our behavior and dietary lifestyle that could make best use of how our body is changing. So I think this is again a little complex in terms of how we can actually translate that into our day-to-day behavior. But I thought that the philosophy that undergirds this whole changes that's happening in the season and to our body is important for all of us to realize that.
Wow, that's a wonderful explanation. So I hear you that so according to the external environment change, the climate change, the temperature changes. So your body system changes. That's amazing. So when that changes, how does that affect to your body in Tibetan medicine? And also, how do you understand and the differences, or how do you really perceive the understanding of the seasons in Tibetan medicine? And how do you put that into practice?
Yeah, thank you, Yandrila. I think perhaps I think I forgot to mention that when we talk about different season in Tibetan medicine, one thing which is slightly different from the way we in general understand season is in Tibetan medicine when we talk about different seasons and how it impacts our health, mind and body, is we have a six different seasons, right? And most of us would know, and especially who are familiar with Tibetan medicine, who practice Tibetan medicine, we use these different six seasons uh, in whether we are making diagnosis, designing a treatment, or making any dietary and lifestyle regimen for patients. So instead of just spring, summer, fall, and winter, in Tibetan medicine, we would have a upper or early winter, and the later part of winter. Then we would have spring. Uh, then what we say is soka in Tibetan medicine. Soka, not just in Tibetan medicine, in Tibetan culture, soka is more like a dry summer, and then we have a monsoon, and then fall, and then again starting with the upper winter. And so we have six seasons, right? In each of these seasons, we have a very specific impact on our health and well-being. And so again, we need to understand that when we talk about health and well-being, we are we are looking at both the physical and mental aspects of our health and well-being. Now, for instance, if when we talk about the early or later part of winter, the our the there are many studies out there now, because it's one thing to talk about the system which has stood the test of time for centuries, that we have uh, not only understood but applied that in our practice. But now in recent years, there are studies being done, especially a pretty well-known Belgian study where they recruited graduate, I think it's a college students, where they invited them to the lab and were completely shut down from any kind of uh, external environment impact on them. But through the course of a year, they did a study on this 48 students, I think, and they realized that the way the season act on their system, particularly their brain function, is so different through the course of one season to another season. And I think this really shows that our brain is also attuned evolutionary how it reacts to our environment, especially when the seasons are changing. Now, in Tibetan medicine, we talk exclusively about when we talk about disease, it's not just the disease that would just kind of manifest right away when something's wrong in our body. They are very well systemic way of explaining that when we say that there's a first, the illness or the disease tend to accumulate in our body. So in Tibetan we say sopa, and then there's a phase when it started to manifest when we say dangwa, and then there's a phase when it started to just kind of slowly, gradually pacify and calm down when we say shiva. Each of these season actually play a direct role when the when any form of illness or illness related to lung or tipa or pekin would start to accumulate, what season it would start manifesting, and what season it actually would start to pacify. So now when we talk about the fall season, fall season is a time when we would experience our tipa. So when again, among the Buddhist cultural society, particularly Tibetan society, when we talk about tipa, we always think about uh, our bile or bile enzymes or something to do with the digestive system to some extent. Even same with the Indian medicine. When they talk about pitta, they always think about bile. But I think it's important to understand that in fall season, our TIPA or our digestive and metabolic system tend to shoot up a bit because all of a sudden now after monsoon or phase of cooling environment, now we have a little warmer season. Now, with that, at that time, when our body all of a sudden started to warm up, metabolism started to warm up, our body, there's a chance that our body might get confused, just like we also might get confused because then we tend to engage in certain behavior and lifestyle, dietary behavior, which might be not conducive to our body. So at that time, it's important for us to know that what are the things that we need to take care of. Make sure that you don't expose your body to sudden coldness or sudden heat where we're just kind of uh, haphazardly engaging in certain behavior. Same thing through the course of fall, the season, the weather would tend to have this roller coaster situation. For instance, here in Minnesota now, all of a sudden we started to have snowfall yesterday, and today we have some percentage that we might get a snowfall, and which never happens. Like in the mid October, we started to have a snowfall in Midwest. Now, when that happens, then it's so crucial because from our inside of our body, our metabolism, our TIPA might be rising up, but outside is almost like a winter, right? And so our body, our mind, or in conventional science, we're saying our brain is getting two different signals. And it's
Mhm.
easy for us to get confused. Our body, inside body is saying, oh, it's too much TIPA, right? We're starting to feel a little more heat, and especially the time of the day through the course of 24 hours, between time of uh, 11 to 3 in the daytime, it's a TIPA time, right? And our TIPA might even actually shoot up and we start to feel like, oh, it's really hot and I'm feeling hot. But you step out and it's really cold. And that's when most of the time people would catch flu or any other kind of infection because you're not taking care of your body to the abrupt changes that's happening in the season. And so I think that's really the key thing. Now, when winter occurs, the thing is the accumulation of bacon started to happen. The TIPA would calm down. Now our body again get confused and what we can do in order to compensate for the sudden changes in our inner body due to the external seasonal changes. So we need to keep ourselves warm, engage in certain behavior. Again, we'll talk more about it. So that's why in Tibetan medicine, uh, the ground rule or the rule of the thumb is always keep on juggling because there's so many. We talk about how we are in a dynamic state of health because everything is changing all the time, and as and when the season changes, we need to be able to juggle, keep a right balance between our inner changes in our body, the way we think, and then the external changes with the season. And I think if we are able to do that, we can't say that we will be healthy all through the year, but at least we make ourselves a little less susceptible and vulnerable and be more prepared.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for diving into the root cause of conditions. Because in our general public or in our public health or conventional medicine, normally we always say, "Oh, I have an allergy. Maybe something from external. There's some too much pollen. There's too much dust. There's too much something external." But we never thought about this idea in our deeper level. There's that deep that can affect your health. So I really appreciate your diving deep down to the root cause of conditions in Tibetan medicine, which makes such a unique factors to this your health. So you can change along the um, external change, then you you make an adjustment for your, in terms of lifestyle, normally we say in Tibetan medicine, right? So you really have to behave, wear your clothes according to what external environment is doing. You have to follow that patterns. Just
Absolutely.
give you a little bit of sidetrack about California is that I really like the idea of sixth season, because the California, we really, our season is really weird. It can be like yesterday we had a big summer, and today maybe it's a minor summer. Tomorrow can be really cold, and also in one day, I normally tell my patients that you probably experiencing six seasons or eight seasons. So you don't just wear sweater whole day long, or you don't wear just t-shirt one day long. So you better take something with you all the time, behave according to what is the temperature changing outside. So you need to work along. So like the last time, as we had a big fire, and in Tibetan medicine in fall, it's a heat is a rising up. But in Californian people, for here, it's like our between the season in spring and summer, that dry season. So for us, we're experimenting all the dry summer time. So we haven't had a rain since May this year. And up to now, that's why we have all those wildfire. Everything is dry externally, all gray, all gray, light yellow. Looks like our cold winter in Minnesota or in Tibet. Externally, except those planted trees are different. But the natural grass, almost everything is kind of like the dry. So what I'm trying to make the point here is the environment and the temperature and the season really changes according to the globe. But in Tibetan medicine has a clear description of the six season, not only season, but it has a different definition of this. So you can use this as a formula to apply in where you live, because it being our challenge as Tibetan doctor, um, the raining season is not in summer, it's not in fall. For us, raining season is from October to maybe February, March. So we're gonna do exactly opposite what we're going to do in Tibet or in Minnesota seasons. But we um, have to change the idea of how we can guide our patient. So normally I tell my patient, you better think there's six seasons in a day to you, how to say, you uh, behave according to what you are confronting. So thank you. I just want to conclude this. So my next question is, um, maybe we can move on to or come back to our flu season one more time to dive a little bit deeper. So to focus more on the flu season, which is the typical the fall and winter season, people here are strongly encouraged to take a flu shot. But some people are not able to take because of reaction to flu vaccination, or they didn't feel comfortable taking one. Is there any this people can do from Tibetan medicine perspective? So we mentioned that we try to help them, but how can we do this? I want to share one story for you. Just last week, one of my co-worker couldn't come to work last minute, so we didn't know what happened. She said, I can't come to work, I'm dizzy, I'm having vertigo. So we didn't know what happened. I said, first thing, did you eat enough, did you sleep enough, all those did you drink enough? She had everything good, but then later on she found out she just had the flu shot. So like people like her, we have a many people, some people get a really sore arm. That's a minor, but a lot of people, or quite a bit of people having adverse effect immediately, but we don't know later. So anyway, if we can provide some alternative or holistic view of prevention, in addition to flu shots, like a shot, because in Tibetan medicine, the shot, the prevention is not only flu shot itself is not part of Tibetan medicine, But in Tibetan medicine, we have many different ways to prevent illnesses. So can you give us some tips what to do during this time?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, yeah, I'm so glad that we're able to have this conversation today because as you shared this story of your coworkers' experience, we have so many people out there having very similar experiences like this. There are people whose whose ideas and their values doesn't coincide with taking vaccination or a flu shot in this context. And I think we really need to think about how we actually can make sure that we provide the best possible safe environment for their health and well-being. Uh, when it comes to how, from the Tibetan medicine perspective, how we can actually create that, facilitate that situation, I think it's really exciting because diet and behavior or a lifestyle is such a key uh, treatment intervention. Because as you know very well, Yandron, when we design a treatment for any of our patients or clients, we don't start thinking about, oh, what herbal formulas or Tibetan medicine I'm going to prescribe, or what accessory therapies I'm gonna prescribe. But we're thinking about what kind of, as you said, that you asked your coworker about her diet, right? Right? Did you drink enough water? Did you have enough food? Did you sleep okay? And those are so key. And so that's why, uh, with the change of season, now both of us were talking about how, due to climate change, due to global warming, how the weather pattern is changing so drastically. Now, in if you think about the text, it's a fall season. It's supposed to be warm and a little hot, right? But now it's getting cold, and especially most part of the Midwest, of course, in the northern side of the US, and I guess across the globe, winter have started to come early, and now it's cold. And in Tibetan medicine, we usually would say when when it starts to get cold and the breezes are cold, you feel like you need to layer up yourself when you're stepping out. It has a direct impact on our body, right? So in Tibetan medicine, we talk all the time about taste, right? And it's almost like uh, I remember some of our stuff. I guess Dr. Tony Tidwell will also talk about how we carry our pharmacy on our tongue, right? And so in Tibetan medicine, whether we are thinking about diet or medicinal plants or herbs, we always think about based on the six taste, ro, not lensa, kawa, tawa, kawa, right?
Mhm.
And sweet, sour, salty, pungent, astringent, bitter. And so in Tibetan medicine, we would say the three tastes, not kyu lensa, are the tastes that would be perfect when it started to get cold outside. And so we usually always tell people, right, ginger, lemon, honey would be perfect beverage when it started to get cold outside. And there are tons of studies out there, right, scientifically proven how actually ginger could be really good for not only kind of supporting your metabolic heat in your system, but also supports and facilitate a situation in our body where immune system is able to function properly. We talk about honey, it's one of the key ingredients in most of the herbal formulas, as well as in designing a particular diet. And then lemon uh, or lime also helps to provide a certain level of vitamin C and zinc. And so that's how I think we think about a diet, but we're thinking about the taste, right? And it'll be quite interesting because so many of the people out there, especially people who are out there in healthcare setting, I'm talking about the Western medicine perspective, they don't necessarily think about the six tastes and then try to design something. And so we can use that premise of focusing everything on taste. Now, the other thing that we can also think about is if someone is not able to take a flu shot, uh, besides diet that we're talking about, it's so key that we engage in certain behavior. For instance, you need to stay active. You need to engage in certain exercise. Now, exercise doesn't necessarily only mean our physical exercise, right? We have a mental exercise, and in many of the Eastern culture, particularly in Tibetan Buddhist culture, contemplative practice or meditation is a very well tested and practiced intervention when it comes to giving exercise to our mind and its proxy, our brain. And so these are things like engaging in certain amount of time of meditation, engaging in certain physical activities would be extremely helpful in supporting our inner uh, organic systems. Like when we're talking about immune systems, not just the immune system, but the whole set of our body that works together to facilitate that uh, most suitable condition for our immune system to function in its optimum level. And then we can bring in our diet and right. So ginger lemon honey tea could be just a very easy fix that one can make. You can just heat the water and make a ginger lemon honey. But in a regular diet, always try to make sure that we don't want to eat something that would put additional tax or additional work on our digestive system. And so food should be well cooked and warm. We don't want to. I mean, in summer, it's nice to uh, indulge in salads or food which are cooling in nature. But when it started to get cold, we certainly want to engage in diet which are warm in nature. I'm sure you would advise that to your patient all the time, but quite often people tend to think about the taste. People tend to think about the taste that kind of just entice their taste bud, right? But not think about what kind of impact it can on our body. And so the food should be well cooked and warm. It has to be prepared in such a manner that it not only help our body to get enough nourishment or nutrients, but also helps our other part of our body to function at its most optimum level. So I think the diet and behavior is really a work in progress, when we come from the Tibetan medicine perspective, because we can't just say that eat X, Y, and Z diet all through the season and do
Yeah.
this and that. And so you constantly, because sometimes I would say to people that there are lots of people who don't necessarily eat meat, right? Usually we would say, okay, made a chicken broth soup or make some nice beef stew, which could be helpful for you. But then there are people out there who don't necessarily eat meat or who are just their diet is based on vegetarian diet, and so how you can play around with that. And so you can engage in diet which are rich in protein in terms of legumes, cereals, nuts, green leafy vegetables. So those are and make sure that we cook them, because now again in today's time when we talk about the green leafy vegetable, everything has to be eaten raw, right? Because that's how you can get the best nutrient. But at the
Yeah.
very
Uh-huh.
molecular level, those are actually more difficult to digest and absorb in our system. And so I think these are the things people can not only go to certain site. For instance, people can now go online and find all this information, but also to mindfully and consciously work with your body and see how your body is responding or reacting to this particular diet and exercise. And then of course with the flu shot also, sometimes people might not necessarily respond to it positively. And so there's a constant work in progress, and one need to, as I mentioned earlier, one need to maintain that balance by just juggling here and there, and how best your body are able to suit. So I think those are the key things.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, the raw vegetable diet is a very interesting thing, Also the salad thing, because in the West, we're always taught the more vegetable you eat, the better you are. And the more salad you eat, the healthier you are. Unfortunately, it's not true in the clinical version because there are so many people suffering from eating those after eating month to month, year to year. And so one of the thing I tell them, if you have to eat salad, eat midday or eat hot days. So that's a one option. But also you play. So that's the reason we're bringing the Tibetan medicine. And I really like the thing that you brought up is the six tastes in Tibetan medicine. So to me, when we give a guidance through the six tastes, you eat for this constitution, you eat that food. For that constitution, you eat this. Almost like you're learning math, you're learning as the formula. So you don't have to really memorize which food I'm really need to eat, but you're giving them variety of, you give them the method, then they can go out to pick what the food taste is. and then they can implement into their life. So we're getting to the end of the talk, and can you give us two tips from the probably some nutrition home remedies that you can give a guidance for our audience. And before that, then before I forget this is a very important. I also want to make sure our audience knows that Dr. Namdula, Tenzin Namdula, is also author of Tibetan Medicine and You, Path to Well-Being, Better Health and Joy by it's a co-authored with Dr. Marianne Camera and Tenzin Umbrella themselves. It just came out this early year. It's a very popular book, and it's based on 7 different constitution: how you eat, how you behave. It's not only to you eat something, go salad diet forever. So we have this for it's good for me. No, in Tibetan medicine, you have to look at the 7 constitution, and you want to know more, and you can search this book. Again, Tibetan medicine and you, a path to well-being, better health, and joy. And they actually done scientific research, randomized research. So maybe you can give a couple words about your book and your research. Then you can give us two tips. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yandron. Thanks for plugging in for our book. So, yeah, you're right. It came out early this year, and we were all gearing up for traveling around for book promotion. Even and then the pandemic hit, and then everything changed. So we never really get a chance to make a trip across the U.S. But the book is, yeah, very much based on Gyushi, or the fundamental text of Tibetan medicine, the Fourth Tantra. But then it has been supplemented by a study that we did here at the University of Minnesota, where we wanted to actually provide a wider population how Tibetan medicine could be used in our day-to-day life, primarily using the concept of how our diet and behavior, as well as treatment, could be individualized, right? I mean, because we talk a lot about individualized treatment, individualized diet and behavior regimen, but sometimes we miss the boat here in terms of what's the framework that informs the way of individualizing everything when it comes to caring for patients, or designing an intervention for prevention medicine. And so we did this study that was quite a while ago, and the study was really making sure it was done at the University of Minnesota. So most of our participants were actually quite stressed out, because, as we all know, in academic setting, there are infinite number of deadlines and assignments that has to be completed. And so we know that most of our participants would be, to some extent, having a mental exhaustion. But what we found was there's a strong correlation between the assessment that they were able to make based on the constitutional assessment tool that we designed in consultation with researchers here at the University of Minnesota and now Tibetan medical doctors back in Dharamsala in India. Uh, we saw a close correlation between what they found out from the assessment tool and what the Tibetan doctors are able to find out from these participants. So we have these 2 sections, 2 arms that we worked through. The arms that who would go and see the Tibetan doctors and have their pulse and urine being analyzed, and then we have the students who would just go and work on identifying the constitutional nature. And then we design a lifestyle guidelines tool for them based on what outcome that they get of their constitutional nature, what kind of a specific diet and lifestyle or behavior that they can introduce in their life. And the once we had that study being done, we gave an opportunity for our participants to give us a feedback how they're doing in terms of engaging in certain diet and lifestyle based on their nature. And almost huge, the significant number of the participants reported a positive changes in their health as well as the way they think about themselves and their relationship to everything in the environment, including their relationship to their families or loved ones. So I think that's really the important thing. Kind of a thesis of the book is really about how we can actually maintain our state of well-being, health, and be happy. And so that's how, and kind of a taking a step away from that. What Yandron, you were asking is very much related to this because we're talking about what kind of things that we can do at home, which you don't necessarily have to run over to chemist, to Walgreens or CVS to get some kind of a prescription. And so we talked about a certain beverage like ginger lemon honey, which is one of my favorite beverage remedies. Because like in India, we most of the Eastern culture, people would just have ginger lemon honey every time, right? I mean, you go to any Tibetan restaurant in India, and on the list of menu on the beverage, ginger lemon honey would be right up there, and people would just order it. But I think the interesting thing is when we have the same beverage, because like as I said before, in certain part in India, it's just a normal regular beverage. But here in the U.S., if you make a ginger lemon honey, you almost feel like you are making some kind of a medicine decoction. Like you chop the ginger, peel it, and put it in a honey and lemon. It's just like, oh, you're making some kind of a grandmother remedy at home. But it's so helpful as long as you get the right ingredients, right? The honey is a good, if possible, a organic honey, authentically based honey, and then you have a good ginger. I think, yeah, I guess the ginger is most of the time is safe enough. But that's one beverage I always feel like people can use it so effectively to not only to maintain the state of well-being, but also to recover from sometimes if someone is experiencing any kind of a flu symptoms. In addition to that, most of the time we get pretty stressed out in this part of the year. I mean, both in academic and in corporate sector, this is pretty stressful time. Like in colleges or in the school setting, this part of fall season is a time when you are going through the midterm exam, all the assignments, and both the teachers and the students are really preparing toward making sure that they're doing well, the classes are going well, they are getting good grade. In terms of corporate also, they are making good margin of profit, business is going well. And so it's pretty stressful situation through the course of time, not to mention about the external environment changes. And at that time, I think uh, I would always say that if you get a nutmeg, and whether it's a nutmeg grinded powder or a whole nutmeg, along with that, you can add a little bit of dry cumin seed. You can get a powdered nutmeg, dry cumin seed. You can get a little bit of uh, cinnamon powder, and then you can make a very nice mixture of those spices or those powder, and have it with a little bit of warm milk or a boiled warm water, and it does wonder for so many people. I mean, we have seen this uh, thing all the time through the course of COVID-19 situation, when some people who come up with the COVID-19 infection and they will get stressed out, started to lose sleep, they can't fall asleep. One most effective home remedy is like we make a powder of nutmeg and cumin seed and cinnamon, mix it up with a little bit of warm milk, and it really helps to calm down and get a good amount of sleep. And so these are very two simple remedies that people can use it, and I think both of them we can say with certain confidence that it won't have any side effects. So any people, I think we don't want to give honey to infant uh, children, right? We don't want to give them before 4 months, or if they're in the 4 month of the 4 month. But otherwise, we can use them for all ages and with certain level of confidence that it will be helpful to our body. And so I think these are a few things that we can certainly apply in our day-to-day life, especially in this season and in winter.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So jumping back and forth for the flu and cold season. But I was also thinking maybe you can say 1 minute or 2 minutes about, if you starting to feel a little bit sore throat, you feel a little bit under the weather, you feel little body aches, especially joint aches, moves around, you feel a little cold, shivering. So as you know, in Tibetan medicine, we have such a wonderful teas and some preventative method. Do you think it's good idea to contact local Tibetan doctors to consult and get some help? Yeah, we have those wonderful teas, and it's been helping a lot during this pandemic and COVID-19 time. Although we don't have yet about research being published, but as yourself, we're all working towards that direction. So if you can say a few words about that, because I think this one also can be making another percentage in terms of that big pie for prevention. We have the vaccination, we have Tibetan medicine diet, but we have a really good of the tea that being distributed to the patient, some for throat, some for the cough, right? Like, so if you can say a few words about that, that would be great. Then we can close up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, I think this is very important thing to discuss about, because as we all know, in Tibetan society, and also people who know Tibetan culture quite well, particularly Tibetan medicine, Triltang has become synonymous with flu or flu related issues, or even now COVID-19, right? Triltang is one of the very simple formulation based decoction, almost like a tea, that Tibetan medicine would prescribe or advise for people with early stage of flu to take that. But not only in early stage, but also under right observation or supervision. Sometimes people can have a underlying condition like a renal, kidney related complication, or severe diabetes, ill managed diabetes. Then people need to be slightly careful. Otherwise, generally, Tulta is very effective for any kind of flu-like symptoms, or people who are just about to get flu, right? And so, as you would know, Yandron, we are doing this small observational studies, and Atma is one of the partners or stakeholders in this study, and we're seeing that almost majority of our Tibetan doctors, not only in the US but across the world, who are out there, they are using Tultang as one of the primary means of intervention, or using it as the main herbal formulas in treating, as well as helping people to prevent themselves from catching flu or COVID-19. Now, that's the one thing. But then, besides that, there are a lot of other teas. For instance, we have all these teas focused on people with lung nature, or Tipa nature, or pagan nature, right? And then I think uh, our state of our mind is so important, and it is so closely linked with our immune system, how our body works. And so a tea like a lung tea could be so extremely helpful, right? And the more calm and relaxed and mentally more balanced someone is, their body is also able to develop certain level of capacity to generate immune system, and then be protected against any kind of this flu or virus going around in our environment at this time of the year. And then there are some other medicines. For instance, we didn't talk about Tibetan Rinchen Rubu or precious pill at all. In some ways, we very often use precious pill as almost like a vaccination, right? Most of these precious
Mhm.
pills, people have different speculation about, oh, what are different ingredients are used in precious pill, are they safe enough? But there are studies being done out there, scientific clinical studies being done, and the results has been positive in stating that none of those heavy metals that people think that they are being used, but it's used in an extremely different manner. It has been detoxified and it's been purified to such an extent that it doesn't show any negative impact on our nervous system as well as our kidney function. And so Rinchen Ribu, people who have certain understanding and knowledge about how precious pills are being made and how it's being prescribed, especially among Tibetan community, they are able to take this precious pill and boost up the immune system tremendously. And so it's almost like, yeah, many of these precious pills are almost like, for instance, like Rinchen Mangjor or Tangjor or Tsurudashe. It's extremely helpful in terms of how it can support and and kind of reinforce the strength of our immune system. So there are so many things that we can talk about, but I think, as you mentioned earlier, a decoction like tultang or some of those herbal formula-based tea could be really helpful. And I think people out there, irrespective of whether they're Tibetan or they're from Buddhist culture or Himalayan culture, I think it could be really helpful if someone who has some issues or conditions due to which they can't take flu shot, they can in addition to their diet and behavior, they can take help from Tibetan doctors in getting access to those formulas and boost up their immune system.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing
Yeah.
such an extensive and intensive knowledge of Tibetan medicine. So you mentioned Rinchen Ribu and Tibetan protection pills, those decoctions or teas, then diet, lifestyles, and home remedy. There are already 6 or 7 things that we have mentioned here to boost and to help to provide alternatives healing method for the people who cannot receive vaccinations. So thank you very much. So what I'm gonna say is that if we have any questions from the audience first. Jizula, did you receive anything from the audience? If there's any questions?
It doesn't look like there are any questions right now.
Yeah, we probably didn't make announcement earlier, but we can again, so doesn't matter now or later. If anybody has a question, you're welcome to post. Then one of us will answer. And as a part of Atma's mission, we support and we like to have the Tibetan medicine be available in the public in the across of the North America, including Canada. So it's a wonderful idea if you can look at our list. We have some Tibetan doctors under the Tibetan Medicine Association. So you can consult with them if you have a more detailed questions. Please do not just buy things, then you take it right away, just like Dr. Tenzin mentioned, some of the herbal tea may have some short-term adverse, I don't say 100% of adverse effect, but immediately you need to know all those things need to be guided under a practitioner. So you can always contact us under the American Tibetan Medicine Association. So to the point, I really appreciate your all hard work, and I pulled you out from your all busy schedule. And thank you very much for coming to give us such a wonderful presentation to us. Thank you again. And also, I would love to thank our Jizula, our volunteer from Davis, UC Davis. She's a freshman there, and thank you very much for helping us. And I got you out of bed too early this morning too. So thank you again. I just want to say thank you for all the audience who are listening or who will be going to listening and send us all the messages. So thank you again.
Thank you, Yandron. It's all my pleasure. I'm really glad that we're able to do this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.